This happened to one of my friends, which her name was Jamie at the time of the story. She was 8 years old, and this took place sometime around almost 9 years ago. This was sometime in the late summer of 2013, and Jamie was only 10 at the time of this story. Jamie used to go on picnics a lot in the summer with her family, but this time she went with a couple of her friends, which they decided to walk to a nearby park, which had a pretty big forest area. Now, I don't remember what park they actually went to, but it was like a little park area where there would be a few benches in the forest. Jamie with her friends, Tracy, who is 15, and another girl who is at least 14 named Samantha. Tracy and Samantha have been neighborly friends to Jamie for years now, and they seem to be pretty close. When they went to the picnic table that happened to be located in the forest, they decided to eat in the picnic in the forest. It was different, but they went through in the woods for a little bit, but they eventually found a picnic table. There were a few people that were also in the area, but they were in other areas as there was a couple trails in the forest that would lead you to different areas. They all sat down and began to eat the food that they had brought, such as some sandwiches, chips, and etc. Yeah, they were pretty the amazing friends back then, so they all each shared their little thing. However, as they were eating their food and doing their own thing, Jamie said that after they have a picnic, they should go for a walk. They thought it would be a nice idea after they were finished eating, so they started to eat their food that they brought. However, for Tracy then looked up to see that there was to see something. It looked like there was a silhouette of a young girl, probably around 13 or 15. She was wearing what seemed to be kind of like a flower girl dress, and she was staring directly at them. They honestly had no idea what this girl was doing, so Tracy looked up. "Hey, are you lost?" The girl didn't seem to be showing any response or anything. She just simply then took off running into the woods. "Man, did you see that?" Tracy said to Jamie as she looked up from eating her sandwich. "What did you see?" Tracy explained that there was a woman, well, not really a woman, but a young girl, and she took off running into the forest wearing a flower girl dress. That's weird. We haven't seen anyone like that. Of course, that is what Jamie said to Tracy, and Samantha was honestly confused. Samantha decided that she would go in the forest to see if she could find them. To which, after they were finished their lunch, Tracy stayed back to watch their stuff while Jamie and Samantha go and find out where this woman is. They end up following the path of the forest when they saw that same girl again in a small clearing in the woods. Of course, the girl seemed to be staring directly at them, who laughs and then takes off running into the woods. They tried to follow her, but they unfortunately couldn't find her as she disappeared like that. They honestly have no idea who this girl was, so they headed back to their picnic area. Once they told Tracy that, they ended up packing up their stuff and headed back to Jamie's house. They have not been back to that area since, but they had no idea who this girl was and if she was dangerous. That was something that they all were questioning. But what they have fought and experienced that day was completely paranormal. For some context, this took place when one of my friends, which he was in high school at the time, his name was Andy. Andy was with his best friend named Mark, and at the time of the story, they were both 18 years old and just got out of high school. During the summer, They went to somewhere in the States, which I believe was Massachusetts, in a pretty big park area. It was an area that I can't remember where it was located exactly, but it was around that area where there was a national forest. Since it was near where the mountains were, but like I said, I don't remember if it was Massachusetts or it was somewhere else in the States. They went on a picnic as they decided that it was one of the best days they could have a road trip together. Now, unfortunately, Andy lost his girlfriend due to the fact that they had a major argument which caused them to break up. However, Andy being the kind friend he was to Mark, that was the case, but sometimes when I get confused between Mark and Andy, as they were pretty much almost like twins, but except Mark had at least a few feet taller, probably 6 foot, while Andy was about 5'10". They were both walking on the trail, and they decided to stop at a picnic bench. They found a picnic table and decided to have themselves a picnic, as they brought along some snacks and food. They had made some sandwiches for each other, and as they were eating, they ended up looking over to see that there was something walking along the tree line. At first, to Mark's eyes, he thought that it could have been maybe a hiker or something, but whatever it was all black. Andy looked up and said to Mark that maybe that could be just a bear, but however, how would it be possible to be a bear if it was walking on 2 feet? They had no idea, as the area they were in, they were pretty much bears in the area, but they couldn't really tell what it was. They continued on to have their picnic when they ended up looking over again to see whatever it was gone. They knew it wasn't a hiker, as hikers usually would hike alone, but they couldn't find anyone or any sounds or voices. They continued to eat their picnic, and when they were finished eating their picnic, they ended up looking over to see that there was something coming out of the trees and went towards them. Not really right towards them, but they were standing right in front of them. Somehow they were, whatever this thing was, it was about maybe 50 feet or so away. However, though, it was at the bottom of the hill, and Andy and Mark stared at it. They didn't know what this creature was, or if it noticed them. Whatever it was definitely not a hiker. At first they thought it could have been a bear, but that was kind of hard to tell at first, as if it was a bear. That whatever it was heard a noise from someone screaming, and which whatever this creature was took off back running into the trees and far away as possible. That was Mark and Andy's cue to get out of there. They packed up their stuff and ran back to the trail, and they went back to their car and drove back to the hotel they were staying at. As soon as they got back there, they had no way. They decided to just remain quiet for the car ride home. They had no idea what this creature was or what it wanted, but for whatever reason, it probably wasn't good, as they never went back to that same camping area again ever since this incident. They don't know what that creature was, but they can definitely say it was not a bear or a hiker, and they're still unsure today as what this creature was that was in the woods. Unfortunately, they will never know. This happened at least to one of my neighbor's friends, which his name was Don, or Don Need for short. Don was actually a hunter at the time of this story. This took place in 2019 during the late summer and early fall. Don was doing his own thing when it comes to hunting. He normally hunts for deer and some other animals. However, though, it was time for his picnic, as he always eats while he was out on hunting. He found a picnic table, so he sat down and began to eat his lunch. As he was eating, it started to rain a little bit, to which he had an umbrella over his food, just so his food doesn't get wet due to the rain. As he was doing his own thing, he looked up. He thought it could have been a wild animal smelling the food. Although it was starting to rain a bit, it was going to rain more, so he decided that he would head back after he had finished eating. He looked over to see that there was a woman. She looked to be in her mid-30s, and she looked like she was about maybe 5'10". Don was about 6 foot tall, but he had no idea who this woman was, as they didn't see her during the trip. She kind of looked like she was drenched in rain, as she wore a tank top and some cargo pants. She ended up just looking at him. She had long brown hair, and she didn't really look to be anyone that Don knew. Don was looking over and thought that maybe she was just someone that had walked for the woods. However, though, she didn't look like a hiker or any kind of hunter for that matter. She ended up just staring at him for a while. Don offered to share his lunch with her, to which she said okay. As they were both eating the food, she ended up telling him that her name was Violet. Violet had explained something, saying that her quote-unquote boyfriend kicked her out of the house, and she'd been wandering the woods for days. Now, at first, Don thought that maybe Violet was lying as her way of trying to lure him into a trap. But, however, being the nice guy, he said, I could give you a ride if you need it. Violet said, no, you can't take me to my boyfriend's house. He'd kill me. Now, this was kind of weird, but Don had no idea if this woman was actually being serious or if she was actually in dire help. But then that's when Dawn realized that she was hiding something behind her hand on the right, as if she didn't want anyone to see. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sure maybe if you go to the Rangers pit stop area, they could probably help you, he said. Then Violet got up. You made the right decision. She then walked away, and that's when Dawn got up and got out of there. He went back to his truck and drenched in rain and drove all the way back to his house. This Violet girl definitely seemed a bit suspicious when her right hand was behind her back. But what he remembered seeing when she walked away was that she was holding a large knife. He honestly glad he didn't take her back, otherwise she would have murdered him or done something much worse. Don has never seen this girl since, and he's glad he did not take her anywhere with him, as this story could have ended in a whole different level.